Jamar Adams, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for having me. Glad to be here.
We crossed paths when you were at VP at related companies, and I always had a question that I wanted to ask. Why are you not in the NFL, running the ball, winning Super Bowl? Like, how you ended up in affordable housing? It's like...
Well, I think the easiest answer is I wasn't good enough. But I think the more complicated answer is I think from the time I was a young kid, I play in my house with my little toy cars and all that stuff. And I would drive to my television and then play Madden and be like, I'm in the NFL. And I would drive to, another couch in my house and be like, I'm at my office. And I would go and play SimCity, interestingly enough. And then I would drive home and like, I'm at home, I'm relaxing and chilling. So even from when I was very young, I knew I wanted to be in business, either in conjunction with sports or after sports. And so I ended up having some disc issues in my lower back and cracked vertebrae, which sidelined me in the NFL. And at the time I was engaged, and my fiance at that particular time, who was my ex-fiance, but my fiance at that time was like, you need to get out of the NFL because I want you to be able to play with our kids. But she encouraged me to say, I think you should move on to that next phase in your life in business. And so I did that kind of as she pushed, and I ended up getting a job offer at Goldman Sachs to work in Chicago. She was living in Chicago at the time, and I was rehabbing in Chicago. And then after having gotten that job offer, I was certain that I wanted to go get my MBA.
Hold your horses. You're going like fast forward. This is great, by the way. This is great. But all jokes aside, the reason why I wanted to touch that topic, like, it's very sensitive. And what do I mean by that? You have 90% of the student athletes, irrespective of the level that they play at, even if it's, D1 or D3, they have a dream, all right? They have the aspiration of going pro. And that dream becomes a plan. And everybody's working on the plan. You have been there, waking up early in the morning, going to the gym, working out, going back, reading the playbook. And as Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, all right? And this is where life comes. When that plan doesn't work out and you have invested like so much, and then you end up without the right foundations for a plan B. Because as I said, like 90% of the student athletes, they have that plan and they end up in a dead end. Mm-hmm. So I would like to use your story because you were able not only to make the transition, but also to be very successful on your transition that you made. All right. But everyone starts with the introduction. It's going to be very concise.
Okay.
Probably I'm going to miss a lot, but I'm going to have all your information description, okay, including the link of the company and your contact information.
Okay.
All right. All right. So here we go. Jamar Adams, you're the founder and managing principal of Ethos Development, and 100% minority-owned real estate firm lending more than $6 billion in affordable workforce and mixed-use developments. Before launching Essence, you served as vice president at related companies where you helped redevelop and preserve affordable housing across the country, including nearly 5,000 units in New York City. Before stepping into real estate, you played in the NFL with the Seattle Seahawks and the Philadelphia Eagles. And you're also a proud graduate of the University of Michigan. Quite of a resume.
Part of my proudest thing is graduating from the University of Michigan.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a absolutely tremendous university, great people, and just like-minded people to myself. I mean, the majority of people I meet that graduate from University of Michigan, like, I can sit down and have a very easy conversation with them. They're not pretentious. They have an ego, but it is like the proper ego that like gives you the energy to work hard, not an ego that offends and or like, causes issue with other people. And so it was, I think it's probably the second best decision I've ever made in my life. So.
Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
Grew up in Charlotte, single parent household, 2 older brothers. I was the youngest. It was a good time growing up.
When you got into football?
I was the youngest of, all my cousins and all that stuff like that. So football for me was interesting. I always wanted to play. I have a video from like 1990 Christmas, and I'm running around with a little football, and I'm chasing my bigger cousins, and I'm like, let me play, and they're like, you too small, and I'm like, I can throw, look at me, and so, but I think I was trying to play football because it was something that the kids that were older than me and my family were doing, and I wanted to tag along. I didn't start playing organized football until 12. 11, I started. My mom paid the $300. I think it was $150 for me, $150 for my brother. And we didn't clean our room. And so her rules were like, you have to follow all my rules or you don't get to do extracurricular activity. So she took me off the team, which was a big message to me and my brother because we didn't have a lot of money. And she basically took that $150 for each of us and flushed it down the commode, which was like a major thing for us in our household. And so I had to wait from 11 and then 12, I actually got to play that following year. So I started playing for the Plaza Rams at 12 years old.
And then I assume you went to high school and at that point you have aspirations. Like you were targeting to go to Michigan or like Michigan came over the fence?
No, it was interesting. So played Little League football, middle school football, and went to high school. And the first high school I went to, Zebulon B. Vance, which doesn't exist anymore. They changed the name. But like Vance had the number one ranked high school quarterback. And we had like the number one in the state defensive back and the number one in the state the offensive tackle. So we had a whole bunch of colleges coming to look at us. And I was a freshman and I was playing on varsity. There's a funny story there, but I was playing on varsity.
I want to hear it.
And so like I'm playing on varsity and they're coming and they're looking at these stars and they're like, who is this kid right here? And the coach is like, nah, this is, this kid Jamar. He's a freshman. They're like, what? And so I started getting interest as a freshman in high school from colleges. The funny story is that, so I was supposed to go to another high school called West Charlotte and started there before the school started. I'm like working up the team and then transferred to Vance because my mom worked at IBM at the time. And so Vance was a sponsored school by IBM. They gave them all the computers. So any parent who had a kid, parents all have kids, but any employee of IBM who had kids could send their kids to, like, there was a high school, a middle school, elementary school, and Vance was the high school. So I was able to go to Vance because my mom worked at IBM at the time. This was right before she got laid off. And so it was great because like I wanted to go to this great new school. But like when I got there, all off-season training had happened. So like I got there, they're like, who is this kid? Put him on JV. And like I remember the first game, I'm just standing on the sideline. And I'm like, man, I'm better than all these kids. I'm like just standing on the sideline. And we were getting our butt kicked. And one of the coaches was walking down like, we're terrible. They're like, you, get in there. And I was like, what position? They were like, don't matter, just go out there. And I started making plays and they were like, who is this kid? And so I literally went from not starting on JV to starting on varsity the next week, right? It was like this kind of crazy thing. So, but I mean, how I got interested from Michigan. So I transferred to another school called Butler High School, which is also a brand new school. And at Butler, they would do this trip up to Ann Arbor, Michigan every year with a couple of their kids. And so went up to Ann Arbor with my coach, Steve Shaughnessy, loved Coach Shaughnessy, and was up there doing drills in the summer with Michigan. And the coaches were like, who is this kid? This kid's amazing. We love him. And they offered me a scholarship. So from a very young age in high school, I had this offer from Michigan. So Michigan was my first offer. Technically, Tennessee was my first real offer, but I hated Tennessee because I was a Florida State fan. I was like, screw Tennessee. But my second offer was the University of Michigan. And so, I was a fan. Charles Woodson had the visor and won the Heisman Trophy. And so, to me, it was a great football program. And I learned to appreciate the academics. I learned to appreciate, the people, which is the reason I ultimately went to, chose to go to school there.
So you end up in Michigan, all right, big school.
Very.
Right. During that point, what did you have in the back of your mind? You said, something, I'm going to go to the NFL, or concurrently you were working on a plan B? As you said, like as a kid, you know, you were playing Madden and then you were going and you're acting that you were like a businessman.
Yeah.
What was your way of thinking?
From day one when I got to school there, one of my recruiters, Eric Campbell, who just texted me the other day, Coach Soup, he said, listen to me, I'll tell you this, son. He said, if you come to Michigan, he went through Michigan and graduated from Michigan, was coaching there now. So if you come to Michigan and you play 4 years and you go to the NFL, he said, we pimped you. He said, if you come here and you get a degree, and it doesn't matter if you go to the NFL or not, he's like, you work the system. And so with the combination of him, you know, my godfather and the visions I had when I was a kid, I always was planning to go to school and get my degree because I knew that, like, you know, anything could happen, right? And you're at football, you're playing, your athletic career is over. So I was always committed to getting my academic, you know, degree from University of Michigan. And as, you know, as I was getting recruited, I started to understand the prowess that Michigan had academically. I was like, this ain't just like going to some other little, you know, scrub school. This is going to a high quality, high caliber academic institution. And so if I can leave here with a degree, this will give me a number of other opportunities and options, you know, after football, or if football never happens after Michigan, then I'll have a number of opportunities and options. And so like that was the vision from day one when I got to campus. It was like, you got to do both. You got to kill it, you know, in the classroom, and you got to kill it on the playing field.
How was the experience of playing in the NCAA?
It's you know, there's no experience like it. Collegiate sports is different than professional sports. Professional sports it's a business. Collegiate sports, there's so much pageantry and like the atmosphere and the energy. I mean, like to this day, there's very few things that actually get me very excited. Watching a University of Michigan football game is one of those things that makes me very excited. I think a girl broke up with me because she watched me watch the Michigan-Ohio State game and got frustrated because she was like, you are never that excited like when we spend time together.
Yes, she doesn't get it.
And so, but you know, there's just a connection there. And but again, it comes from the fact that when I played there, I just remember that great energy you feel. It's like a euphoric feeling of like you're there, your colors, your band. Like it's just it's
a brotherhood.
It's a brotherhood. It's special. It's really special.
At what point you realize that NFL is a possibility? And I assume at some point you had an agent, right?
So NFL became a possibility. I played my freshman year, and my freshman year, there's a whole bunch of guys who got drafted in the first round from Michigan. And I was like, I play with these guys, and like, you know, we were on the same field. And so I technically have 3 more years to improve to get to where they were. And so I thought it was legitimate opportunity for me to go and play in the NFL. And so, I mean, my last year in college, I, got an agent, interestingly enough, the same guy who was a senior when I was a freshman who got drafted in the first round. There was a defensive back, Marlon Jackson, great leader. I ended up getting the same agent that he got. And there was kind of a great little train of guys going to the same agent from University of Michigan. But yeah, that's, got the agent and that process, that NFL process started officially.
So you graduated from Michigan, and at that point, correct me if I'm wrong, you went to the NFL as undrafted, right?
That's correct. Went to the NFL undrafted. It was wild. I think USA Today, 2 weeks before the draft came out, the year before my draft class, was in the 2008 draft class, the New York Giants won the Super Bowl, beat the New England Patriots. So the Giants had the last pick in the draft, the 32nd draft pick. And so the USA Today always puts out the first 2 rounds of drafts picks. And I remember the USA Today had me being the 2nd round draft pick. I was gonna be the last pick in the 2nd round per USA Today to the New York Giants. And so that was in line with what I was getting from scouts and, my agent and others. I was like, probably at best I'm like a 2nd rounder. At worst, I'm like a 4th rounder. And no, like the draft was happening, and it was one of those kind of interesting moments of growth where the thing that I thought, the expectation I had didn't come to pass. You're getting calls from people, you're with your family, people are like, what's going on? You don't have answers. And the things we don't know is teams are actually calling you. So like, when you watch the NFL on TV, you see the guy picks the phone, like there are teams calling you. Like, I was getting calls 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, 6th round. Like they're calling you because they're saying like, it may be like a position coach or a scout, like, Jamar, we really like you here. We got the 123rd pick. Like, we're going to, like, if you're there, we're going to take you. And then that pick comes and it's like, and they're like, they drafted like the fullback from, West Virginia or something. You're like, this guy just called me. And that happens over and over. So it's kind of a hope deminimizing experience because every time you had this expectation prior to drafting, then every time they call you, you put your expectation back like, all right, okay, I'm finally gonna get drafted. And then when they don't draft you, now the calls you get, you're like, I don't know how to believe and trust any of this stuff. And then your agents start to call you and say, listen, at this point in time, in the 6th round, you don't want to get drafted. You want to be able to pick your team because we'll be able to pick a team that's got the right system from a coach and the right amount of players playing your position and to give you the best chance to make the team and play. And so I ended up having, unfortunately, that opportunity to select amongst a couple of teams who were offering me contracts to say, all right, I want to go there because I think it's the best situation, coaches, players. And, ended up, me and my agent ended up selecting to go to the Seattle Seahawks and sign with the Seahawks.
Let me ask you, at the end of the draft, how did you feel? We're talking about, being at the apex.
Yeah.
And then, slowly, the process you describing, that is like psychologically brutal.
Yeah.
So did that create like doubts or did it reinforce your ego that, something, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to prove them wrong?
I won't say it created doubt. I don't remember back specifically that emotion, but I will say is I remember the action. As the draft was going on, and day 2 or 3 or whatever that time frame was, I'm sitting beside my mom. I lean over and put my head in my mom's lap, and it instantaneously starts to rain. Which was like this very, movie-ish type scene.
Yeah,
like,
cinematic.
I'm like, it was like very cinematic. I'm like, oh, and it starts to rain. But I would say that me going into the NFL, I was just focused because I said, when you get drafted, whatever round you get drafted in, they are the lower round you're drafted, the less resources they put into you. So when they put less resources into you, the faster they are to say, we're going to give up on you. So, first round draft pick, when I came out, I think, averaged probably a, $15 million, contract with like $6 or $7 million signing bonus. So like they're putting a lot of resources in here. Like even if you get in, you're a knucklehead, they're not going to cut you. Right? You got to be a real knucklehead for them to cut you. But like, you start going down the draft, it's like they got less resources, and what I walked in and understood, they had, I don't know what it was, $70,000, $80,000 in signing bonus committed to me. I had like a $1 million contract, but like if they cut you, you don't get any of that money. I knew it was business. It was business time. It wasn't time to go in and try to make any friends. This is not a place I might be for a long time unless I go and prove to them and show them that Jamar Adams is the guy you need to have around. And so it created a determination in me and a focus in me that maybe or may not have been there if I'd have been that 2nd round draft pick, to the New York Giants. Like, I'm like, I got a couple $1 million. No, you walk in and you're like, yo, they got very little tied to me. Therefore, they can cut me at any point in time. And so your focus, intensifies.
People do not understand, or I want to say they do not know how hard it is to make it to the NFL. You have there was a survey, it was 2 years ago. The survey said there are like 2 million of high school players that they want to play collegiate sports, and only 6% makes it. And from that group, only 1% makes it to the pro level.
Yeah.
So the percentage from high school to pro level is like 0.00 something. Even undrafted, even, going without a guaranteed contract to the Seattle Seahawks, that is like a great achievement.
I mean, to me, the blessing, I agree, a tremendous achievement. But to me, it was, again, I had the vision when I was a kid. And so it was just living out that dream. It was living the dream with your eyes open. And so I never thought about it. Like, your family, friends are like, oh, you didn't get drafted. You were supposed to get drafted early. What happened? And like the coaches in Seattle were asking me, they're like, hey, Adam, what'd you do? Like, because people don't understand that the coaches aren't like college where they're picking you. The GM and the scouting staff, they're the ones who are picking you. And so like the coaches don't really know. They're like, I got this guy. Like if you're an earlier pick, they kind of go in but like the coaches don't really, really know. And I remember coaches asking me like, Adam, boy, you got a drug problem? You beating on girls or something? Like, how you not get drafted, right? Because they're like looking at my production, right? Like, how you not get drafted? And I was just like, I don't know. You guys got to tell me. But no, I mean, I was so tremendously blessed. And that what you're talking about is something I think has been a theme in my life, which is, kind of that phoenix from the ashes, or that 0.001%, the thing that like if you had to bet money on, there's no chance you're gonna win, and you're like, I don't know how you won the lottery twice, but you did, right? And so I feel like college, one, growing up how I grew up, to get to high school, to finish high school, won the lottery. From high school to collegiate sports and going to University of Michigan, not just collegiate sports, but a school like Michigan, you won a lottery. From Michigan to the NFL, you won a lottery. And then to imagine again, from the NFL to another, profession, and then having the proximity I had and the projects I got to work on, I just keep winning the lottery, man. And so
you're a lucky guy.
I'm going to keep buying these tickets.
Who was the coach for Seattle? It was Pete Carroll?
Ooh, so that's a good one. So I was there for basically 3 years.
Okay.
The first year was Mike Holmgren. Mike was a great coach, former Green Bay Packer, Super Bowl champion. We call him the Cheese, the Big Cheese. A little parody on the fact that like Green Bay Packers, but also he was the man. Like Mike would start walking. We had these new hallways because we got a new facility in Seattle. Mike would start walking down this hallway that might have been like 100 yards. And you and a group of guys may be standing in that hallway talking to y'all, like messing around. And like if you saw the cheese coming, people were like, cheese. And like we would just part the seas so the cheese could walk through. Once he started on the path, he didn't deviate from the path, right? And so like he was just very well respected, right? And he was a large man, he was like 6'6", he was huge. Then Jim Moore, who had been the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Jim became the head coach after the Cheese left. And then Jim was only head coach for 1 year. And then they brought in Pete. Pete became the head coach. And so, yeah. And that's how I kind of got some favorable treatment in Philadelphia because, the Cheese, I feel like the Cheese, put in a good word with Andy Reid, the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles at that time. It was like, hey, he's a good guy. He's a good kid. And he's a ball player. And so, that's why I think, I got, a couple opportunities in Philadelphia.
What was the reason that you left Seattle? Was it like more playtime?
No, like I got injured. And when I got
during a game or like
I got injured during a game. And they were like, look, we like you. Pete had come in. He was like, but we need some more corners at the time, interestingly enough. They had drafted Earl Thomas, who's a perennial Pro Bowler and All-Pro, and they drafted Cam Chancellor in that same year. So they had some good, really young safeties, and they were like, we need some corners. And they were like, look, you're a good player, but we think that like we need some corners. So I remember they cut me to then go and sign a kid who was a cornerback that had been in Miami. And so I was like, all right, well, let me go to Philadelphia. And I knew their system because Philly played the system. We played my first 2 years in Seattle. And I felt like I had a good chance to play in Philadelphia because they had two young safeties. Then I was like, hey, I got a real shot to play here too.
How was your first season with the Eagles?
My first season, it was amazing because it was the first season that Michael Vick started in the NFL again. And so this was like this like highlight film season. Michael Vick's like, I think he had like 5 touchdowns. We go and play Monday night. We play Monday night against the Washington now Commanders. And he throws for like 5 touchdowns. First play of the game was like a 75-yard bomb to Deshaun Jackson. And he had a big game in Jacksonville, and he has all these highlight plays. But in addition to all that, we ended up beating the Giants. We won the ESPY for greatest comeback that year. We beat the Giants. We came back, and Deshaun Jackson had a great punt return at the end. So it was a very exciting season. We ended up losing in the playoffs to Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers on a last play, effectively. They ended up winning the Super Bowl that year, but that was a great season. The only season in the NFL that I went to the playoffs. So very good season. And people don't know, in the NFL, you get playoff checks. And so there's more money that you make.
What happened that ended the NFL chapter?
So again, at the time I was engaged, and my fiance, I got injured in Seattle. And, we would hang out and play around, and I'd be like, oh, hold on, babe, hold on. Like, in some pain, because we're like,
wow, you were like
tussling. And she's like, hey, if you can't tussle with me, and I'm like this small woman, how you think you're going to go and like, play a football game? And I was like, don't worry about that. I'll be fine. Like, I'm really, so then I get injured again in Philadelphia. And I'm rehabbing, and this in rehab was far more intensive. Like,
what kind of injury are we talking about?
At that time, that was the 3 severely herniated disc in my lower back, and so in Seattle was the cracked vertebrae, and then the lower, the disc in my back. And so every 2 weeks I would go and get an epidural, so I could then do rehab for 2 weeks to try to get my strength back and all those things. And she was like, when you go get an epidural, you can't walk for like the next, 45 minutes or something like that. So she's got to come and pick me up from the facility and take me home. And she would be like, and she was a lawyer, she was a professional. And she would be like, I don't understand this. How can you be smart? You can go and pivot into another career. Like, why would you keep going through this? And, and seeing that epidural neuro going in my back every 2 weeks, she would sit there and watch, and I'd watch because they'd have you up on the x-ray machine. You could see the needle going in. And she was like, this doesn't make sense. She's like, why would you do this to you and to us? Like, you can pivot and move on to the career. And I think at that time, I didn't really want to pivot because I think there was a theme there that like my friends, when I was a little kid, I wanted to play because my big brothers and all of them were playing. When I got to middle school, it was my friends, they were playing. When I got to high school, same thing. College, my friends are like on the team with me. In NFL, those are your friends. And I was like, my peer group, what I have defined in my peer group, they're still doing it, right? And I'm like, I want to be with my peer group. But I had to make that pivot because, I think with her counsel and prayer, I realized like I could potentially put myself at more and more risk for diminishing return. And playing through pain is not a fun thing. And so I was like, all right, we're going to make this pivot. I didn't know if I was ready or not, but I was like, when I make the pivot, I got to fully commit. And I think the proudest thing, one of the prouder moments in my life is that when I committed Goldman, then ended up related, fast forward, the Jacksonville Jaguars called me and said, hey, we got a safety that went down. We want you to come in and start for us. I had the blessing, the opportunity to say to them, I'm good. I'm going to pass. So I felt like I got to end my career on my terms as opposed to on the terms where like, you're not allowed back in. I was able to say, I'm going to pass because I see a future here that is something I want to lean into.
That's great. Being like so proactive. Very few people that do that. So how did you end up? You said Goldman Sachs. It was your first stop.
So again, I said Steven Schwarzman worked in an investment bank. I did a whole bunch of research and was like, seems like Goldman Sachs, the best investment bank. And so I would say, I felt like when I went from high school to college, I went to the best college combination of football and sports. Football and academics. Maybe there was a Freudian slip there. But then I feel like I went and played in the best league. I didn't play in the Canadian League. I didn't play in the Arena League. I played in the NFL. So I played in the best league. And so when I was leaving the NFL, I said, I'm going to go and work in an investment bank. I need to go work at the best investment bank. And Goldman Sachs, from my research, said it was the shop. And so I interned at a whole bunch of places while I was playing. I interviewed at a whole bunch of places and got a whole bunch of offers, but I was holding out. It took me like 6 months to finally get my offer from Goldman. I think it was like a 4-month interview process and going there and calls. And I'm like, man, come on. These other guys just like, they just give me the offer. Like Merrill Lynch gave me the offer. Morgan Stanley gave, what's going on? And they finally came through and I was like, all right, great. This is tremendous. And they pay 85% of your grad school after 6 months of successful work. So I was like, this is even better. I didn't know this. I could have them pay me or reimbursement. I don't know how it worked. Either the reimbursement they paid for me to go to business school. And I was like, I went to Michigan undergrad. I'm gonna be in Chicago working at Goldman. I'm gonna try to go and get an executive MBA at University of Michigan. And the namesake for the University of Michigan Business School is Stephen M. Ross, an alumnus of the University of Michigan, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, but also the founder, probably more importantly, the founder of the related companies. So
he's also now he's the chairman, right? He's still active.
So he is a non-executive chairman.
Okay.
So he's non-executive chairman but founder of the related companies. Yes.
Before we start the related companies chapters, let's go on a break.
Okay.
I hope you're enjoying the episode, and if you do, please like, comment, subscribe, share the content with your friends, but more importantly, thank you for watching. We're back from the break. So this is where you met Stephen Ross?
This is where I met Stephen Ross.
Tell me about the first experience, the first time that you met Ross.
So a guy who went to University of Michigan, played football at University of Michigan, named Dave Pearson. He was working as like an analyst at the time at related companies or associate. And I met him at a Michigan Michigan golf event. And like a guy named Chris Perry, who's alumnus of the University of Michigan, was like, man, I was telling him my story. He's like, I know a guy who knows Stephen Ross who will probably get you a meeting with Stephen and give you a letter of recommendation. So I met with this guy, met a friend of mine now, but at the time it was a guy I was meeting, Dave Pearson. And Dave's like, man, I actually like you, man. I'm gonna see if I can get a meet with you and Stephen. So he called me a couple of days later. It was like, Stephen wants to meet with you. He'll take 15 minutes to meet with you. I was like, great. So came to New York and the meeting, I think it was at 10 o'clock. But I had already accepted my job at Goldman. So all my clothes were being shipped to Chicago. All my suits and things of that nature were being shipped to Chicago. So I didn't have a suit. And I knew I heard that Stephen was a very formal person, suit, coat, and tie. And I had a suit. And so I was like, I'm gonna wake up early in the morning and go buy a suit. And I'll put the suit on. When I wake up in the morning, no stores were open in New York City before 9:30. So I was like, So I had a collar shirt and some jeans that kind of like slacks. And so I didn't have a belt, so I had the pants folded up in the back. And so I went to go meet Dave, but I was late because he said, meet me at the Starbucks, but there was a Starbucks on both corners. I was at another Starbucks. He was done. So anyway, finally get there. He's like, you can't go in and meet Stephen dressed like this. He played center at the University of Michigan. Okay. And so he was still a little bit in his football weight days. And so he's a larger man. And he's like, I'm going to give you my jacket. So when you go in and meet with Stephen, you got a jacket on. So he gives me this jacket, but this is a jacket for like...
You can swim in it.
There you go. There you go. And so I walked in kind of being like, all right, I got this way too big jacket on. It's not even I feel like I'm a stylish guy. I wear suits and I've been wearing suits for a long time, but I'm gonna walk in and be what I am. And it was supposed to be a 15-minute meeting. It ended up being about 5 hours of me talking to Stephen and then him popping out and then he said, you got to meet Jeff Blau. Jeff Blau, this guy, he went to Michigan and he's going to be, the CEO of the company soon. like, you got to meet Jeff. And so I sat down with Jeff, and then he's like, you got to meet Bruce Beal. You know, Bruce is a young guy. He's going to be the president of the company. And so I'm meeting these guys because he's like, these guys going to be running the company. You could be like that. You could be like that. And it was amazing to me, again, like that lottery ticket again, because he had no reason to give me any time, not 15 minutes. And he gave me this extended period of time. And then he connected me with these people he thought of highly. And he's introduced me to these people in a way that they're like, he's vouching for me, which is, to me, I'm like, okay. And, you know, as I'm coming out of these meetings, like, I just spent 6 months interviewing for all the other roles and 4 months to interview at Goldman. And then the first 15 minutes of me meeting with him, he's like, you know what? He used words that I won't use, but he said, screw Goldman Sachs, you should come work here for me at Related. And again, that's another lottery ticket there that you know, I've called it lottery ticket to him, or I've said I'm fortunate to him. And he says back to me, no, you were prepared. You had done all the work, all that time you did at Michigan, the time you did in NFL, all the interning you did in investment banking, you getting a job offer coming out the NFL from Goldman Sachs. That was the reason when you sat in front of me, I knew I wasn't just looking at a jock. I was looking at a guy who had a vision, and I wanted to be a part of helping that vision come to fruition. So, you know, I was blessed. I still think about it a little bit as a lottery ticket, but I was extremely blessed in just having that connection.
Yeah, that is unique. The fact that you got an offer from Goldman Sachs after you came out from NFL, I haven't heard like a similar story. But going back to what you said about Stephen Ross, and with that, within 50 minutes, he was able to identify your accolades. Those people have X-rays for eyes. They're meeting so many people every day that they're trying to approach them for the X, Y, Z reasons. So they have developed like that sense. So as soon as they see something genuine, something with potential, like they know within the first 10 minutes. The same way that I can identify if someone knows construction, I can tell within the first 5 minutes of the conversation. So,
yeah.
So you spent many years with related companies, right?
Yep.
When did you feel the need to start your own chapter?
So, yeah, it was 10 years, maybe 11 years, something like that. We're related. When it was interesting, when I started Related, that first time I sat down with Stephen, again, I wasn't asking him for a job. I was saying, write me a letter of recommendation, go to business school, because I want to go and work at Goldman and then go, complete my business school. And then I want to go and start my own company. So from day one, I was always talking to him about starting my own company. And he would always engage me in those conversations. And we'd have a whole bunch of opportunities because we would go back to University of Michigan football games or go to Miami Dolphin games, and we'd be talking about the Dolphins. But on these, he would say to me, I'm teaching you real estate, you're teaching me football, right? And so we would have these conversations, just he and I, and he would start talking to me about when you start your company. And I sit here and think about how, again, blessed I am. Like, he would just be telling me, when you start your company, like, make sure you don't go spend your money doing this. And when you start your company, he'd have these statements that started when you start your company. And so from day one I came in and Related, I was thinking about, I'm going to start my own company, but I got a great opportunity here. As opposed to going to business school and paying them to teach me, I can go into a business school where they pay me and still teach me. And so I was super fortunate to kind of get exposed, because Related does it, I think at one of the highest levels there is in the industry of understanding the financing, understanding the politics, understanding the assemblage, understanding the legal, understanding, the construction and design. And so getting indoctrinated into how they do things and how detail oriented they are and how deep they go into the process. It was tremendous for my growth. And it was also tremendous for me because I would always be putting in my mind, I want to try to do every aspect of this deal. Like, oh, it's a ACR report. And other people are like, nah, I don't want to do. I'm like, no, I'm gonna do an ACR report, because I knew if I didn't do an ACR report there, if I started my own company, I wouldn't know how to do an ACR report. So like, there was no task. I was like the yes man. It was like, who wants to be here over Christmas? I'll do it. Like, anything I could do. Who wants to like work on this, insurance? I'll do the insurance thing. Because to me, it was like the more I could glean and learn and be exposed to, the better resource I'd be if I wanted to start my own firm, which I, again, said I already knew I wanted to do that very early.
So you leave related companies and you start Essence Development.
Yes.
Describe for the viewers, for someone with zero background, what exactly Essence Development is doing.
Okay, so Essence Development is an investment platform. So we're an investment platform that focuses on economic and social impacts. So what do we do specifically? We do a combination of things. So we buy existing affordable housing. Majority of that existing affordable housing has rental subsidy contracts that are provided by the federal government under HUD through a program called the Project-Based Section 8 program. So we buy a lot of those assets, and when we buy them, we use tax-exempt bonds and low-income housing tax credits to finance the acquisition and to finance the renovation of every one of the units of the property and the overall property. So we get to have the benefit of acquiring a property, preserving it long-term, but also improving the physical state of the building. The special sauce that Essence does is then we layer onto that workforce training, income mobility, access to nutritional education and nutritional foods, access to high quality childcare in certain cases, depending on if it's senior, non-senior, et cetera. And then access to high quality healthcare. So that becomes a part of our social and economic impact. We're now breathing into not only the physical assets that we bought and renovated, but now we're able to breathe into that community, those 4 pillars of saying, all right, well, now we have a healthcare solution for you. Now we have a solution for you to, when you pay your rent, you get, positive credit scores, which we do with Azuzu, one of our partners. We have other things that we do to help those families. That is the social and economic impact that we do for the community that we're in and the broader community that we're in, right? Like, I have a thing where we do events for families, but I never buy sodas. I'm like, I can't rightfully understanding the negative impacts of high fructose corn syrup, feed, our community, these drinks. And so I try to give them exposure to other things that are, no sugar, but tasty, right? Seltzer waters that have flavors and things of that nature. So that's one side of what we do. Using those same 4 pillars, we also have a development business where we build ground up construction projects, right? And that's a combination of affordable housing, workforce housing, market rate housing. We also have, life science in our platform, in our pipeline. We have an office in our pipeline. And then we have some infrastructure in our pipeline. And so we have that construction, we build it, and we don't have a general contracting license, but we are the developer who oversees and puts together the entire plan for a new construction project. But we're also the developer and the owner of those who buy existing deals and then renovate them to improve them for those communities that currently live there.
Are you collaborating now with related companies in any of your deals?
Yeah, so one of our biggest deals is the Elliott Chelsea Fulton redevelopment, which is the redevelopment of a community in West Chelsea that is currently 2,056 existing public housing units, where we are going to rebuild, which we're closing very shortly now, the first phase. We're going to rebuild all 2,056 units. And we're going to, so those families that currently live there, they get to stay on campus. And they don't have to trust us. They just got to look out their window, see the new building come up, see their new apartment. They move into that new apartment and they get all the same rights, say they pay the same amount of money in rent they had before. And then we do that in multiple phases. So then all 2,000 units are complete. And then, as a part of the plan, we have the ability to build another 3,400 new units on the campus that will have new affordable housing, but also some market rate in the community. But the main thing for us, going to our core, we're going to build healthcare facilities, childcare facilities, workforce training centers, healthy grocers. So again, in that project with that scale, we have the ability to bring all those things together in a physical perspective, not just like, oh, we're going to bring a nurse in on a weekly basis. No, we actually have a medical facility that has, healthcare professionals in there that will connect with our community. And that one is the project we're doing in partnership with New York City Housing Authority and the related companies.
the fact that you're building services for those communities, that is vital, because building only affordable housing is not the solution. You have to provide the services for those people that move into those buildings to be able to create that community that they need.
Yeah, the way the ethos of Essence got put together, it was a combination of how I growing up in public housing, affordable housing, and how my family still lives in a lot of cases. And me understanding I couldn't scale my dollars from the NFL to help them. But I started realizing, as a real estate platform, you can scale a lot of the resources to help people at a larger level. And so for me, again, our differentiating factor is what we're bringing to the table. Because I agree with you. I do not believe to building all affordable housing community is the desired outcome socially. When you study the impacts of poverty, right? Like we derive our pillars, we call them, which kind of support our business from the results, which is talking about how do you get people out of poverty, how you keep people out of poverty. You got to give them access to workforce training and income mobility. You got to give access to quality healthcare, access to quality education, access to quality nutritional foods, right? So our ability at this project of this scale allows us to do it in a physical manner. But to me, I think a lot of people talk about the units that we're doing. That's great. But I think the most impactful thing we're going to do with that project is all those things that I talked about from a community perspective. Because not only will it impact our residents, right, that are in that community, but it's going to impact the broader community, all the people who live around there who will be able to benefit from those resources as well. So that's why I'm extremely, extremely excited about the opportunities of changing the outcomes of those families that live there now and that will live there in the future with that resource set that they'll have access to.
What is the milestone that you want to hit with Essence in the next 5 years?
I want to make sure our brand has been established. And again, I think the establishment of our brand, which is we do high quality work. So anyone who comes in contact with Essence says, if you go into an Essence building, you live in an Essence community, and I want people to understand what Essence community means. It means high quality community, amazing quality. Art is at the center of that quality because I think art kind of enriches the spirit. So in every one of our buildings, you're going to walk in, you're going to see amazing art, great color. Obviously, right now, our financing partners and our city agency partners, they say they can execute at the highest level, the most complex projects, they can do them. We're great partners. We love to work with those guys. The residents that live in our building want them to say, man, they treat us with the utmost respect. I want every person who lives in one of our properties, any person who engages in one of our properties says that we treat them with the utmost respect. I want the quality to be one that like you feel like you're comfortable. My mom living there, my family members living there. And I would say finally, I think that like what we want Essence to have as a brand is that if you think about an Essence community, it's not only a building that's a great building for the people who live there, but it's a great resource for the community that it sits within. So to me, in 5 years, I would like for the brand of Essence to start to really take root so that people can say those things about Essence.
That is great. I'm pretty sure that you're going to hit that milestone. I have zero doubts. As we're coming to an end, I have like one last question. What advice would you give to a student athlete that pursued that dream to go pro and failed?
So the advice I would give to that student athlete is this. You didn't fail. You got diverted. How can one determine failure as they pursued a goal and didn't accomplish that goal? That's not failure, right? You pursued a goal, you trained for it, you worked hard for it, you didn't get it. That's okay. It's part of life. Use that as fuel to fuel you to do something else, whatever that something else is. And I would say, when trying to find what that something else is, find something that you're competent in and that you're passionate in. You may be competent and passionate about coaching sports. So go and give your life to those kids in those institutions that then can help them change their lives. How could one deem that as a failure? If you're passionate and competent about business, go and commit yourself to a business that you can then, go and, build. Like I've had the opportunity to go and build, tremendous housing for low income families, go and build tremendous communities in neighborhoods across this country. No one can ever deem that's a failure. If your passion and competence is, being a teacher, again, go and be a phenomenal teacher. Change the lives of kids that you're working with. Whatever you're passionate and competent in, go and do that. And don't think about what happened in life as a failure. No, it was a diversion to where you were actually supposed to be in life at that particular time. And God will give you, the desires of your heart. He will ensure that the things that you're seeking, as you seek it diligently, you'll obtain. And again, it doesn't mean you're going to obtain the professional career, but you'll obtain that joy that you were seeking, that you were finding in that sports. You'll find that in the next thing where you're competent and passionate. So you are not a failure. There's nothing about your life is failure. That was an event that you got diverted. You may have failed, but you are not in any way, shape, or form a failure. You are a tremendous, amazing person who is going to do some amazing things. Stay on the path. Stay on the path.
That is a great advice, and I'm amazed with the positive energy that you have as a person. Jamar, thank you for coming. My man, it was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a great time to spend with you.